Prepare yourself for Earthling Entertainment, the perfect blend of paranormal and pop culture, with your host, Joe Wakefield and Ryan Lang.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Earthling Entertainment with Joe Wakefield and Ryan Lang.
Hey, I'm your host who's back from the dead, Joe Wakefield.
I'm Ryan Lang, and I'm here to eat your brains.
Ha ha ha, that's because today is a special zombie episode. So, for those of you joining us for the first time, what we do here is a little bit of the spooky, a little bit of the creepy. Sometimes it's cryptozoology, other times it's ghosts or a haunting or a legend, but it's always spooky. And that, of course, is followed by a segment called Disclosure Discussion. That one's all about aliens.
I'm just asking questions. Questions of the government. What have they released? What is the UAP section of the government doing? Do we have new UFO videos, photos, stories? That's what we like to talk about.
That's right. And then the second half of the show, the latter half, if you will, is all dedicated to pop culture and entertainment.
Yes.
Sometimes it's movie news or headlines or a celebrity death or a new video game or some other fun thing. But we also do interviews and we do trivia games. It's all entertainment. And those two sections together, our spooky and our pop culture, come together to make the moon pie of deliciousness that we like to call Earthling Entertainment. It's a podcast. Welcome.
Welcome indeed. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, man, definitely. And today is a special episode. We're doing things a little bit different. We're going to definitely have our spooky stuff segment, but then we have an interview with the writer, the screenwriter. He's also a director and producer, but he wrote Return of the Living Dead 3.
That's sweet.
It is. It's a really great interview. And then after that, we have a trivia game all about zombies with two special guests. One is Tessa Philbrick. She works in post-production finance in the film industry. And we have Daniel Pico, and he is a writer, director, producer who has a new television show he's going to tell us about on top of doing the game.
And of course, you got your favorite host, Ryan, also part of it.
He is also competing. So it's those two special guests and Ryan in the Zombie Trivia Showdown.
That's right. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is going to be a lot of fun. So if you like zombies, you are in the right place. Ryan, what is your favorite zombie movie?
I have to say that my favorite zombie movie is World War Z.
Really?
I know there's so many others, that I love and whatnot, but I just feel like I learned a lot from it. Like the way that he used like the magazines always sticks to me, how he wrapped it and then duct taped it.
So he wrapped his forearms with magazines to keep it so zombies couldn't bite him.
It was genius. And I'm just like, honestly, I never thought of something like that. And I was like, just stuff like that. I love the concept.
So you think the movie may have helped prepare you for the zombie apocalypse?
Yeah, a little bit. And it's funny, like I got Kevlar sleeves at work, and I always think this, and I'm like, in any kind of weird situation, like I'm going to put a few of these sleeves on because they are Kevlar.
Oh, that's a good idea. So if the zombie apocalypse breaks out and you happen to be, like at work, there you go.
Well, and I've got a stash at home too, like, because I always wash them myself.
I'm screwed. I'm going to die. I am a writer, so I, work from home and I have my baby. So if the zombie apocalypse comes out, I'm just going to be some guy in his house looking out the window going, well, son, I think we're fucked.
But I mean, and I love the concept that like they didn't bother with the sick. So him
getting the zombies
injecting himself
with a fatal disease.
Like, yeah. And I like, and what a cool scene that was too, because they're watching on the monitor. They can't really talk to him. He can't see them, but they can see him.
Yes. So in the third act of this film, spoilers for World War Z, the Brad Pitt character is trying to escape from the zombies. He's trapped in a room on a camera like Ryan is describing. So he interjects himself with a fatal disease because he figured out zombies won't eat him because they want to spread their virus. And if you're going to die, you can't do that.
Yep. And it's because they work, like more like a virus than like a creature. Right. And it was just so cool because like they're all sitting there going, if he takes that, he's dead. If he takes that, he's dead. And he has no idea.
Diseases to take.
Yeah. He has no idea. To me, that was just a really cool scene. Like a lot of that, there was so much to that. Then all of them, like the dead piling up outside the wall to get over Like it was just crazy. Like what an intense film.
Yeah, so that was a really fun concept where they would like crawl over each other like biles and piles on like kind of like ants do
Yep.
and like get over walls and stuff. That was something new. I will give that movie that. I'm not sure how that would work in real life, obviously.
I don't know either, but it was definitely, it's pretty terrifying concept that
Well,
you're not even safe behind those walls.
I can't help but wish that the CGI was a little bit better because that I remember thinking that it looked a little wonky. I don't know why.
A little, I'll admit, yeah, they focus less on that, but I mean, overall, that one's my favorite. But another one that I want to give honorable mention to was the 2004 Dawn of the Dead.
All right, we'll go back to Dawn of the Dead. I want to tell you some fun facts about World War Z real quick.
Okay.
Did you know that the writer Max Brooks also wrote the Zombie Survival Guide?
And I had that book.
Yeah.
I remember reading I remember the end freaking me out because I'm like, zombies are real?
Yeah.
Like these are real freaking stories? Like,
by the way, you're all fucked.
yeah, right?
Yeah,
Right?
The Zombie Survival Guide's a great book. And then my second bit of trivia, Max Brooks, the writer of World War Z and the Zombie Survival Guide, is apparently the son of Mel Brooks of, Young Frankenstein fame and Blazing Saddles and all that fun stuff. Spaceballs!
I seriously did not make that connection whatsoever. But, I mean, that tracks. The dude's talented as hell. I mean, and obviously it goes without saying, Mel Brooks.
Talented goes through the bloodline.
Evidently so.
That's why.
I mean, those are some big boots
It's
to
not
fill.
nepotism, it's talent.
Those are big boots to fill.
It
Holy
is.
shit.
Well, that's why I give a lot of props. This is a little bit off topic. I give a lot of props to Joe Hill because he is Stephen King's son. And when he started doing books, he went by Joe Hill, and it wasn't immediately that even his publishers knew he was related to Stephen King. He did it on his own merit. Now, whether you think he is a better or worse writer than his dad, put that aside, he got his writing out there on his own.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Pretty sweet.
But yeah, that is really sweet. So now I did not know those interesting facts about World War Z.
I know, but what? Just to jump back, what did you want to say about the 2004 Dawn of the Dead?
I just, we saw this huge resurgence of zombies, obviously, with The Walking Dead. But I mean, that feels like the first for our generation, really bringing it back.
Well, I think The Walking Dead, and I could be wrong, but I think it premiered in 2011, and I'm pretty sure that Dawn of the Dead remake was 2004. And us growing up in 2004, we were juniors in high school. I remember that really helped the zombie craze for us because I grew up watching George A. Romero films, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, all those, the originals. And I remember being really excited when that remake came out. Directed by Zack Snyder and written by James Gunn.
And I feel like I've forgotten Zombieland. That's another great zombie movie.
Well,
honestly.
before we jump into another one, I want to tell you about my favorite.
Okay.
Diary of the Dead.
I loved that movie.
Did you?
Yeah, found footage.
Yeah, well, see, the found footage thing, to me, I don't normally like found footage movies, but that one really, really worked because there was a reason for the found footage, is they were a college film school, and they were out on a shoot when the zombie apocalypse hits. So the guy who is making his college thesis movie, I believe, just decides, well, I'm going to record what's actually happening. Screw it. We're doing a documentary. This is a worldwide phenomenon. Someone's going to want to know. And then, his hubris and just going too far to try to do it ultimately is his undoing. But it was a zombie movie, and it showed the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. And I, obviously, being a filmmaker, loved it so much. There was another horror movie,
and he was like sorry to interrupt. He was uploading it, right? Like as they were kind of when they would find kind of a base.
I think
he would plug in and upload it. And
no. He was editing because the movie starts with a narration by the girlfriend, and she's like, I edited this and added music for jump scares.
It's been a while.
It was post, but yeah,
it's been a while
zombies,
since I saw
man.
that. That one was a good one. I have to watch that again. It's been a while.
What do you think the worst place to be during a zombie outbreak? What do you think would be the worst place to be?
Oh gosh, the worst place to be, honestly, in the middle of a big city, in the middle of any place really highly populated, in an elevator.
Well, an elevator would suck because you don't know what's outside the elevator, but unless there's a zombie in the elevator, you would be relatively safe for a while.
You wouldn't on a plane.
A plane would be
Oh,
bad.
does Quarantine count as like a zombie movie? Didn't that happen?
Okay, so yes.
That was the second one, right?
Yes, that was
Yeah.
Quarantine 2 that took place on the plane. And it counts as a zombie film the same way 28 Days Later counts as a zombie
Yes.
film, because in that one it was like a weird rabies
Like
thing.
rabies.
It was an actual zombie. But yeah. That's a good one.
No, yeah, you wouldn't want to be on a plane.
I'll tell
Oh
you
my
what.
God.
I think the worst would be, though, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, thousands of people, limited exits, a stadium during a game or during a concert. Can you imagine?
Oh, no.
Can you imagine zombies breaking out in the crowd during Taylor Swift's Era Tour?
See,
That would
I
be
feel like
fucking crazy.
at least there you'd be easy to pick them out. If you're like at like one of my shows that I'd be going to, like fucking Cannibal Corpse, quite literally, you know,
People already look like
people
zombies.
already look like zombies and they're already acting like that. So it really wouldn't like it would take even longer for it to be like, wait a minute, this is actually weird. Because like at Taylor Swift, it's like people like it's like why are people moshing?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Did that guy just bite the other guy?
He just bit him.
He's not even the zombie. The zombie's on the other side.
Well, oh,
Yeah, no, that guy's just
a
on bath
weirdo, just a
salts.
weirdo. Yeah. Talking to sausage party people.
Well, fudge. Well, with that, buddy, how about we jump into spooky stuff?
All right.
All right. Well, like we said before, guys, this episode's all about zombies. So guess what? On this spooky stuff, we're talking about zombies. Enjoy.
The zombie, often portrayed as an undead, flesh-eating, decaying corpse, has enjoyed a popularity surge in recent years.
Boy, has it.
Whether they're devouring their prey in The Walking Dead or getting their groove on in Michael Jackson's Thriller video, zombies dominate pop culture, but are zombies real?
But are they?
Unlike many other monsters, which are mostly a product of superstition, religion, and fear, zombies have a basis in fact, and several verified cases of zombies have been reported from Haitian voodoo culture.
That's true.
Archaeologists have unearthed many ancient graves, which contain skeletons pinned down by rocks and other heavy objects, assumedly to prevent the dead bodies from reanimating.
You know what that reminds me of? There's this movie called Fido, and it was after the zombie apocalypse happened. There's like a Leave It to Beaver kind of town, and to prevent being like having to deal with zombies, they have cages for your head, and like they put like weird little cages above your tombstone, or that you could be buried in cement, just so you won't come back.
I remember seeing stuff about Fido, but I never watched it. But one thing that stuck with me, wasn't it in Diary of the Dead where he had like the one dude had like his family, all his zombies in the pool, and they were kind of just all walking around in the pool, like underwater.
I do believe that was. I do vaguely remember that scene. Maybe that was Diary of the Dead.
I
It's been a
think it
long time.
was.
Yeah.
It was near the end because I remember it was like a big discovery where it's like, dude, you're keeping a bunch of zombies. He's like, it's my family, blah, blah, blah.
Oh my god.
I don't know why that scene stuck out to me. Zombie folklore has been around for centuries in Haiti, possibly originating in the 17th century when West African slaves were brought in to work on Haiti's sugarcane plantations. Brutal conditions left the slaves longing for freedom. According to some reports, the life, or rather afterlife, of a zombie represented the horrific plight of slavery. Whatever you choose to call them, these corpses that rise from the grave to walk the world and terrify, and sometimes infect its inhabitants, are one of the top monsters in popular culture.
Absolutely. You know, and I believe personally, I think George A. Romero in 1968 with his Night of the Living Dead film, I think that is what really made zombies. Because before that, in movies, the zombie took like a direct influence from voodoo and Haitian culture.
Yeah.
And it was a different kind of zombie. It was more like they described, where it was like a mindless slave that you can tell to do things. It was
more like hypnosis.
Yeah, and it wasn't like an undead thing that was going to eat you. That was the ghouls that was created by George A. Romero.
Correct. Yeah, it was more like brains.
Well,
Like, yeah,
actually, Brains was Return of the Living Dead. Before that, it was not Brains. So when you hear Brains, that is originated from the Return of the Living Dead series.
the word zombie, originally spelled as zombie with an I, which came into the English language in the 1800s when poet Robert Southey mentioned it in his History of Brazil. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the word comes from the Louisiana Creole or Haitian Creole word zombie, and is
Zombie. Yes.
yeah, and
There's
it
no
is
M with an N.
yeah, like zombie, and it is akin to the Zimbundu term zumbi, which means ghost.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's an amalgamation of a word that comes from all different places, but
Yeah.
pretty much means dead, ghost, zombie. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, which we usually see with a lot of these really old, creatures, that usually, it goes through many different languages because it's around the world.
Yeah.
The word refers to creatures from Haitian folklore. At its origin was little more than the ghosts from Western folklore.
Yeah. Like I said, it's all ghouls.
However, little by little, the concept evolved to refer to a person that is rendered mindless by a witch doctor, entering a death-like state while still animated, and thus becoming the witch doctor's slave. Voodoo is a religion based in West Africa and practiced throughout Haiti and the Caribbean, Brazil, and American South, and other places with an African heritage. Many people who follow the voodoo religion today believe zombies are myths, but some believe zombies are people revived by a voodoo practitioner known as a boker.
Yeah. Yeah. So, basically, they could turn you into a zombie. They could make it look like you're dead, and they could bring you back, and kind of your brain ain't working all the way, and you're very suggestible, and you can be enslaved, essentially.
Yes, and I know this one from, I used to play like old weird video games like Hugo's House of Horror, and like Hugo goes to the jungle, and it was like a whole thing of voodoo in that
Ooh.
in that game that you had to fight. And of course King Diamond released an album called Voodoo, which takes place in Louisiana, and it's one of my favorites actually. It's a good one.
Nice.
It's a good one.
That sounds really cool.
Bokers have a tradition of using herbs, shells, fish, animal parts, bones, and other objects to create concoctions, including zombie powders, which contain tetrodotoxin, a deadly neurotoxin found in pufferfish and some other marine species. Used carefully at sublethal doses, the tetrodotoxin combination may cause zombie like symptoms such as difficulty walking, mental confusion, and respiratory problems.
Yeah. So moaning, walking.
So he just needs some Sudafed.
Oh man, I can see how that would look like a zombie.
High doses of tetrodotoxin can lead to paralysis and coma. This could cause someone to appear dead and be buried alive, then later revived.
Whoa.
Though it's rare, there are several credible reports in medical journals of people using these compounds to induce paralysis in people, then revive them from the grave. In one case, a Haitian woman who appeared to be dead was buried in a family tomb, only to reappear 3 years later. An investigation revealed that her tomb was filled with stones, and her parent agreed to admit her to a local hospital.
Yeah, because they're like, okay, well, I guess you are our daughter. We opened up the grave. There's no bones. There's rocks. Holy crap.
Oops.
Yeah.
Oopsie poopsie. The good news is, we're sorry. In another well-documented case, a Haitian man named Clairvius Narcisse entered a local hospital with severe respiratory problems in 1962. After he slipped into a coma, Narcisse was declared dead and was buried shortly thereafter. But 18 years later, a man walked up to Angelina Narcisse in a village marketplace, insisting she was his sister. Doctors, townspeople, and family members all identified him as Clairvius Narcisse, who claimed he had been buried alive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. Be like, no, really. I mean, if our buddy, we don't need to name him, but if he showed back up, you would recognize him.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap.
Like,
That's him.
And this said 18 years later.
Okay. Well, yeah, maybe he got older, but it would still, I mean, a lot of people. It wasn't just one guy.
And then dug up. So he said he had been buried alive, then dug up to put to work on a distant sugar plantation. So
Yeah.
it's like so someone like did him in.
Yeah, so it seems like someone may have poisoned him. He seemed like he was dead. They buried him, and then the person who did it unburied him,
Oh my,
zombified
because they
him.
knew he was alive.
and turned him into a slave, essentially, like I said.
Oh my God, that's fucking fucked.
And this
That's
is
diabolical.
and this is a documented case.
Oh my God. Is this proof of the undead? Maybe, maybe not. It could be all in their heads. For instance, there is also a specific psychiatric disorder called Cotard's syndrome that can cause people to act like zombies. This is because they are under the delusion that they are dead or decomposing. Well, that would suck to have.
Can you imagine just thinking that you're decomposing? That'd be so. I mean, I have a problem when because I'm not a hypochondriac, but if I'm just like I'm coming down with a sickness or something, and that's all I think about and I obsess about it. So if it was something like that where you think you're rotting, ugh.
It's like, man, did my pinky fall off? I feel like it fell off, man.
No, it's still there.
You
Why
should-
does it feel like
It's gonna fall off soon, though. Just keep an eye for me, okay?
Jeebus.
It remains unclear just how prevalent this condition is, but research suggests that it is a rare occurrence. Thank God.
Yeah, right.
Documented cases of people with Cotard syndrome are unsettling, nevertheless. I mean, yeah. Holy shit. One case study reports the situation of a 53-year-old woman who was complaining that she was dead, smelled like rotting flesh, and wanted to be taken to the morgue so that she could be with dead people.
Can you imagine? I'm dead. You gotta take me to the cemetery. Grandma, you're not dead. No, I'm dead. I'm smelling. I'm rotten. I'm
like-
dead.
It's just because you haven't showered in a couple weeks, Grandma. Could you just please just take a bath?
And could you just please take me to the hospital? I'm not eating the sandwich. I'm dead.
I need to be with other dead folks.
It's rough.
Another speaks of a 65-year-old man who had developed a belief that his organs, including his brain, had stopped working, and that even the house in which he lived was slowly but steadily falling apart. That just sounds like just
Depression,
extreme,
yeah.
just extreme paranoia and depression. At some point, the man attempted to take his own life. Researchers report that his suicide note revealed that he wanted to kill himself as he feared spreading a deadly infection to the villagers.
Well, at least he was a conscientious person, right? He's like, look, I'm dying, I'm dead, I'm rotting, and I feel like if you guys don't bury me, I'm gonna make Chaz sick. And we all know Chaz don't wash his hands. So if he's gonna walk around and get everybody sick, and then you're gonna blame me, because somehow no one ever blames Chaz.
You leave me and my hygiene out of this.
Ugh, Chaz.
Spooky. But let's keep digging anyway. According to the Undead 18th Century by Linda Troost, zombies appeared in literature as far back as 1697 and were described as spirits or ghosts, not cannibalistic fiends. They arrived on the film scene around the same time as their monster peers, Frankenstein and Dracula, with the 1932 release of White Zombie.
Yes, and I do believe that was more of the Haitian voodoo zombie, like we mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. More human than human. Sorry. Had White Zombie.
Nothing wrong with that.
But it wasn't until 1968 that zombies acquired a cult following of their own with the release of Night of the Living Dead, directed by George Romero. Over the next 15 years,
Well, see, this is why I mentioned it earlier, is because they don't mention that George A. Romero is responsible for the undead, we eat humans, flesh-eating zombie. Like, he made that, and they don't even mention it. So I thought I would say that earlier.
Yeah. Over the next 15 years, Romero directed 2 more zombie films, Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. As special effects technology improved with each film, the zombies appeared more gruesome and realistic.
He also did 3 more after that, I want to mention.
From the 1980s on, dozens of zombie films were made. Even Scooby-Doo battled zombies in the 1998 film Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
Oh my God. Okay, so I'm going to go off on a little tangent here.
Do it.
I love Scooby-Doo because I always loved Scooby-Doo. And Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is the best animated Scooby-Doo film.
That is the good one. I remember you showing me.
They recently made Scooby-Doo Return to Zombie Island, and they just shit all over the first
Oh
one.
no.
They were like, remember in the first one where all the monsters were real? Well, this is how they weren't really real. And it like retconned the first movie, and it's garbage. So
they did a Ryan Johnson.
Oh my God. It's garbage. Do not watch Scooby-Doo Return to Zombie Island. Not that I imagine a lot of the listeners are like Scooby-Doo fans. I'm just saying.
This is it. This is the one that splits the audience right in half.
My God.
Oh my God. Even Scooby-Doo battling the zombies in 1998 film Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island and the 2013 release of World War Z,
Yeah, you mentioned that one.
starring Brad Pitt, brought zombie culture to a disturbing new level. Yeah, I knew that one did pretty good. Yeah. Not surprisingly, television jumped on the zombie bandwagon with shows like iZombie and Helix. But no zombies ever terrified more television viewers than those on The Walking Dead, which you introduced the comic book series.
I will say I was really happy with the fact that we were reading the comics. Like I found it before it became a show. So before it was a huge phenomenon, I actually got I was happy. My local comic shop, they a guy named Pete was like, you should read this. And I'm like, all right. Very good.
And I was happy that you were, because I got to experience it as well. We
Yeah.
read, I think I stopped where Negan came out, and that was like kind of like,
I don't know, 70s or 80s. The comics went to like, I don't know, 104, 105. I'm not sure. I have all the big volumes, but my individual issues, I put them out on the table when our buddy died, Jeff, because he loved him so much. I put them out on the table to be like, this is some of the stuff he liked. And everyone at the funeral thought that meant they were free.
yep.
So I lost a lot of comics on that one, but that's okay. You know what's funny thing about The Walking Dead, though, is George A. Romero was asked hey, George, do you want to direct an episode? And he turned it down. Apparently he wasn't a fan of the show. I don't know how much of it he saw before he died, but he basically said that he thought it was too close for comfort. Like he felt they ripped him off.
Huh. Well, I mean, it's hard to say how one would feel, right? Like you're kind of like considered like the godfather of zombie films and stuff, and then and of course people are gonna make other zombie films.
Well, it's kind of like the guy who wrote Dune, Frank Herbert.
Yeah.
Well, he I guess Tolkien read Dune, and Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien was just like, meh, I don't like it.
I kind of like the
How
idea.
weird would that be? Be like, oh, really?
I like the idea of an old feud, just like angrily talking shit through letters at one another, like
My dearest charlatan.
like like I don't know why, but the thought of like an old time celebrity feud is funny to me.
That is funny.
So each show of The Walking Dead features a post-apocalyptic zombie feeding frenzy that leaves fans horrified yet unable to look away. Well, what about zombies in theology?
What about them, Ryan?
Let's see, Joe.
All right, I'm strapped in.
Hot dog. The modern day carnivorous zombie isn't in the Bible.
Go figure.
But there are many references to bodies being reanimated or resurrected, which may have inspired zombie myths throughout history. The book of Ezekiel describes a vision where Ezekiel is dropped in a boneyard and prophesies to the bones. Prophesizes to the bones. The bones start to shake and become covered with muscle and flesh until they're reanimated, yet there was no breath in them.
Okay, all right. So a creepy meat golem.
Right. And the book of Isaiah states, "Thy dead men shall live, together with my dead body shall they arise. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in dust, for thy dew is the dew of herbs, and the earth shall cast us out the dead."
Yeah, I got nothing to say.
I got nothing. That's
I'm not even entirely sure what that said.
Isaiah was really trying to stick it to us, I guess.
I mean, you got it. This is why you make fun of people who like are obsessed with the Bible but have never read it. I will say one thing. It is hard to read any book that's thousands of years old.
Yes, that was difficult to read, I'll admit. I've never had the best reading the Bible. Yeah,
Well,
because most of it is weird.
It's not
right?
just the Bible, it's like any holy book, because if it's existed for thousands of years, like how we pronounce things and how we talk has changed so much that it's just, oh, wow, that's why it's like professors studying it and stuff. They're like, all right, we can spend 5 days going over this one paragraph just to make sure.
Yeah, yeah. Moreover, passages abound in both the Old and New Testament. This is obviously a typo. So, moreover, passages abound in both the Old and New Testaments about the resurrection of saints and sinners in the end times. This may be one reason so many zombie stories are associated with an apocalypse. Which makes sense, right? Like, I always heard the old thing when there's no more room in hell, the dead shall walk the earth. So, are we zombie obsessed?
Yes.
Why does the modern world have such a love affair with zombies? History may be to blame, according to Stanford literary scholar Angela Becerra Vittergar. Vittergar tells Stanford News she believes mankind's perception of violence took a drastic turn after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. She feels such a large scale disaster caused people to fictionalize their deaths on a mass scale and focus on survival of the fittest, a common theme among zombie narratives.
Right, I get that. So people before that questioning their own mortality would be like, how would I die? How would I die? But because that was such a mass destruction, it put it in our heads of like, oh, what if I was in a scenario where everyone died? That does make sense. I could see why psychologically.
Yeah, and I think there's just something about zombies because, I mean, they're just another person. And I think that makes it kind of scarier.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like a monster. It's a person who is turned into this, who now wants to eat you.
Well, I definitely think the whole, hey, that's my loved one, but it's no longer my loved one. They don't have a brain and they're going to kill me aspect of it is really freaky.
Yeah, yeah. Like Shaun of the Dead. I don't know why, but Shaun of the Dead, I think, hit on that really hard, actually. Like, even though that was a funny film, I feel like Shaun of the Dead actually, like, really hit the nail on the head with, like, the loved one and the problem with that.
Sure, they had some good scenes there with his stepdad. Yeah.
Yep. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention agrees.
The CDC.
They took advantage of zombie mania and created a zombie preparedness website to motivate people to prepare for disasters and offer tips on how to survive a zombie apocalypse and other catastrophes. The site was a huge hit.
That's funny.
Whether you're a fan of zombies or the thought of running into one causes you to sleep with one eye open, they're part of modern pop culture. Although the zombie myth has a basis in fact, today's zombies have taken on a life of their own.
They certainly have. Zombie mania.
Zombies.
Oh man, you know what? I thought the weirdest thing, when I knew that zombies had gone mainstream, is when they had the video game Plants vs. Zombies.
Yep.
That's when I'm like, oh man, kids are into zombies. Like this is something that is not going anywhere.
And I remember, I believe on original Nintendo, I'm really gonna talk about something that old right now, but I believe Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
It might have been in Super Nintendo.
Was that Super Nintendo?
It could have
or
been
was
regular
that
Nintendo. Either way, long time ago, old game.
Yep, and that's another one that was in the 80s. So I mean, yeah, we've always seen that, and of course, like, video games like Left 4 Dead.
We played Left 4 Dead so much when that came out. Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2. They made kind of a spiritual sequel called Back 4 Blood, and it's pretty good. It's because they, rights issues. They're completely different zombies, but it's still specialty zombies for first-person shooter. Kind of like, it's a fun game.
Wasn't there another one, Dead Island? Then there was the one where you were stuck. I forget what it was called, but you were stuck in a mall, and you had to basically just use stuff you found around the mall to fight your way out.
The first thing you said was Dead Island, and they had two of those, including a spinoff called Dead Island.
Those were hard.
Riptide. And the second one you were talking about is called Dead Rising.
That was it.
The first one took place in the mall. The
Right.
second one took place, I believe, in a casino. And the third one took place in like a small town. And then the fourth one took place, was it a mall again? I don't know.
God, I didn't know they did that many.
They did, and I believe there's like spinoffs too.
That's crazy. But no, so yeah, zombies have been a huge, huge part of all of our culture. I remember seeing zombies, growing up. There's so much stuff.
Earthling Entertainment Special Report. 1. Robert Pattinson's Batman will not appear in HBO's Penguin television series. 2. Dead Boy Detectives canceled after 1 season at Netflix. 3. The new Jurassic movie is titled Jurassic World Rebirth. 4. Nikki Glaser 2 hosts 2025 Golden Globes. 5. One Tree Hill sequel series in the works at Netflix. 6. The band Oasis will reunite for World Tour in 2025. This has been an Earthling Entertainment Special Report. Oh, Jesus. Gosh, so much. That was nice. Oh, my God. We did that good, right? Why do I have to pee?
And with that, we are officially in the entertainment section of the show, and I'm really excited to introduce our interview. We're interviewing John Penney. Very exciting.
Very exciting indeed, Joe. You did a great job, man. And he was super awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, hey, with no further delay, check it out. Hello, guys, and welcome. So today is a really good day because we are here interviewing John Penney. He is a writer, he is a director, he is a producer. To stick with the theme of our episode, we are focusing on zombies, and he, of course, is the screenwriter of Return of the Living Dead 3. But not only that, he's worked throughout the franchise, and he's going to talk a little bit about his experiences. Thank you very much for joining us. I've always loved the Return of the Living Dead. I like how it's a kind of sort of branch off franchise of Night of the Living Dead, because in the first film they reference that, oh, that movie was made, but it was based on a real thing.
Well, that is the way Dan O'Bannon, I worked on the first one, that one that you're referencing. I worked on that. I was a first assistant editor. Second assistant editor. So I was sitting there syncing up dailies back in the day when we were using 35 millimeter film and double system sound. You had to put all the dailies together every day. So that was my job. But we were doing that in the warehouse where we were shooting the movie. So I knew all the people from Return of the Living Dead, the original, because we were all like at summer camp. We were all together in this warehouse in Burbank. And a lot of them I still stay in touch with. Beverly Randolph, who was the star of the movie, she's friends on Facebook friends and stuff. So we sort of keep loosely connected. There was I don't know if you saw did you see the Brains documentary or the book that was made?
No, I actually didn't get a chance to.
Oh, I'm pause this, but hold on, I'll show you. It's a really cool. They did a book and a documentary called Return of the Living, the complete history of Return of the Living Dead.
All
of course, they have our Julie here, and throughout the book, there's our chapter on Return 3, but they it was a really fun book. But there's a documentary as well that is a companion to this.
That's fantastic.
I think they did the documentary first. Well, because I was one of the few that had the continuity from being the second assistant editor on the first movie, the original, and then writing and associate producing the third one. That I was in both. They have chapters, sections. They have the original, the sequel, Return 3, and then they sort of lump all the other ones afterward in sort of a one chapter, because it was those were sort of underfunded budgets, and they didn't really have a chance to do something fun. But
because it's like the Tremors series, right? Where it's like after we have the first couple in theaters, and then we go to Sci-Fi Channel original movie.
Right. Yeah. Different vibe, a whole different thing. But anyway, so I actually started, and when you talk about that sort of cousin idea, the cousin to the original, it's because they had the rights to the sequel for Night of the Living Dead. That's where it came from.
Yeah.
And so technically all of these are sequels to Night of the Living Dead, even though it's just a rights holding issue.
But I love how that happened. It made this weird, because I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Zelda franchise, the video game franchise, has 3 timelines. And because of the rights issue, Night of the Living Dead also branched off with, in England with Zombie and Zombie 2 in the island. And then we have the Return of the Living Dead, and then we have the Romero sequels. So once again, there's 3 timelines to the zombie universe.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, you were referencing that original, the way we springboarded away from Night of the Living Dead was when he talks about, they're sitting in the office at the warehouse and he says, hey, everything you heard and, it's true. Have you heard about this? And that was fascinating. So for me, being this young guy, basically in the editing room there was a hallway between where all the sound stages and all the sets were over here, and then there was a hallway, and then we had the editing room on the other side. So for me, being a big, genre fan, I would constantly wander during the day onto the sets, and we all ate lunch together. So in the special editions and the documentary, there's actual footage of all of us sitting there having lunch together, which is really cool. On Return of the Living Dead, the first one.
Yeah.
And it was like a fun, happy family. And although I don't know if you've heard about, there was a little bit of a sort of a disconnect because some of the people in the movie were not sure what movie we were making. And to be honest, I was confused when we were watching the dailies. We were like, and tell me if I'm off on a tangent you don't want to talk about.
No, it's fine. I'm just real quick. Are we talking tonally?
No, well, yes, of course. Yes, definitely. But there's a number of things going on. The actors were like, what movie is this? Is this a comedy? Is this for real? Are we supposed to take this seriously?
Are we doing a parody of Night of the Living Dead?
It was confusing.
Yeah,
it was confusing. Because, and then we would get the dailies, and Dan O'Bannon would, in the editing of the first one, we weren't really allowed to cut so much during. Usually, what happens is the editor will sit there and put together scenes, and then sit with the director and show them the roughed-in scene. Well, Dan was very controlling, but he would come in. Our day was, I would sync dailies, and Bob Gordon, the editor, would do what he could, but Dan was very like, I want to be there for all this. So we'd kind of hang out, and then after lunch, before they went back to shooting, Dan O'Bannon would come back in the editing room, and he's always eating a sandwich. I remember he would put the sandwich on the editing machine and point to things, and it was really odd.
Either a sandwich or an ashtray, right?
Yeah, well, because he smoked cigars, definitely, and he ate sandwiches all the time. Something to do with hypoglycemia. I wasn't sure, but he always had to be eating or something.
Sure.
So but he wasn't thrilled with having the editing going on without his input. So what we would do is in the afternoons, once everything was sort of, all the dailies were sunk up, and we had to hang there and wait there until they wrapped, and so we could go look at the dailies and get notes for the next day, so that it would keep going every day, right? And so we didn't have anything to do, so we had a bar with martinis, and so we would have martinis in the afternoon and then go to dailies once they finished, because he didn't want like a lot of editing going on without his purview.
Sure. So you had to wait.
So we hung out. I mean, I was just a widget on that. I was just like I was just doing my job, and I had no like creative. I was just a guy doing my job.
Yeah, at that point,
thinking up dailies. It was assistant editor stuff. But it was fascinating nonetheless. But we couldn't figure out. I had no idea what the tone of that movie was. I mean, I couldn't figure it out. And for instance, there's a whole sequence there with the split dog. Do you remember the split dog sequence?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's a famous sequence, right? Well, it's basically one dolly shot, a full master dolly shot with no coverage, like no close-ups, no medium shots,
Nothing they
nothing,
could cut to at all.
nothing. And I'm looking, going, where's the coverage? But no coverage. So there were things like that we were going, well, this is unusual. So I was with Return of the Living Dead until we wrapped production. And then I went on to another movie as a first assistant called Girls Just Want to Have Fun with Helen Hunt and
Sure.
Sarah Jessica Parker. And it was a really exciting time for me because I was really finding my way through the editing room. At the same time, I was writing a movie called The Kindred that ended up being made with Rod Steiger, Kim Hunter, and it was a creature feature from like 1987. But so I left Return of the Living Dead, the first one, after production, and went on to this other movie. And I didn't really, I said, what is that? I never really thought about it, right? And then I got the invitation to the cast and crew screening for Return of the Living Dead, the first one. So I show up, I watch this movie, I'm blown away. I'm saying, holy crap, this was not at all what I had no idea it was going to be what it turned out to be.
It's like they pulled a rabbit out of their hat.
It was just the music, everything kind of came together in a way that was very surprising because during production, I didn't see the movie that it ended up to be.
Sure.
There were 2 or 3 moments during the original movie that landed really strongly with me. One of them was when we were shooting the half corpse, where they talk to the half corpse, and you see the wagging, spinal cord,
sure,
and
yeah,
skeletal thing, and she's on, and it was all puppetry driven. And I was standing there on the set, as I mentioned, we had our editing rooms were across the hall, and we weren't cutting anything in the afternoon. So I was just kind of wandering around, standing, watching them shoot. And at that moment, I realized that Dan O'Bannon had created something that had not been seen before, which is giving the zombie a sensibility, an awareness. Because they ask, how does it feel to be dead? And it says, it hurts. Or I forget the actual quote. It was, and I'm going, holy crap. I've never seen that in a zombie movie before.
Sure, a little bit from their perspective.
You'd never seen that. It's hard to go back in time, but because it's been, exploited so much since then. But at that time, I remember standing on that set, watching that happening. I'm saying, this is a freaking amazing evolution in zombie lore. Yeah. And then the second scene that, to me, really was seminal about Return of the Living Dead was the fact that we had 2 characters who had been bitten, and they're in the crematorium, and they're slowly getting rigor mortis. They're like, rigor mortis. And I'm like, this is brilliant. These 2 new additions to giving the point of view of what it is like to be dead as a zombie. And number 2, that gradual descent into becoming a zombie. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, like slowly losing the humanity. Because
exactly.
Werewolf films, you kind of get that because they have this weird transformation. But zombie, you're right. Up until that point,
had not happened yet. So I always thought, well, that's a pretty darn brilliant conceit. Didn't think much of it. I went about my career. I ended up doing The Kindred. And then I entered, I sold a script to Warner Brothers, a big studio level movie, and we rewrote that. I entered development hell for a long time. And development hell, for your listeners, if you're not familiar, it's where they buy a script of yours and they hire you, and they pay you quite well to rewrite your script and develop it. And then they end up like, okay, well, we're not making that movie. Thank you. Goodbye.
And that can go on forever.
Hence the tone.
Yeah.
Hence the term development hell, right? because it is a bit of a hellish thing. Anyway, so I did a movie at Orion. I did a movie at Warner Brothers. I sold scripts around the studio system. And then I got a call from my agent at the time. And he said, hey, they're doing a third sequel to Return of the Living Dead. Do you want to go in and pitch an idea? Now, the second movie of Return of the Living Dead didn't really gel very well. It was kind of a rehash, and it didn't have a lot of focus. And generally, it's not considered a great representation of that franchise.
Sure.
So I immediately, upon hearing this, said to my agent, of course I'm going to go pitch on that movie. And in my head, I'm saying, I've got to be the one to write the third one because I know what made the first one special.
Yeah,
right?
You were there.
Those two things that I just mentioned. So immediately, sadly, I had lost my father in real life. And there was this emotional tug. And when I start a project, I always try to find what's the emotional through line going to be? What is the emotional truth of any given movie? And if you can find an emotional truth, you're going to engage the audience in a real way. And so for me, I was struggling with letting go of a man that my father that I loved so greatly and so deeply, and trying to deal with that. And so the first impulse was, oh, it'll be about a guy who loses his father. And then I said, no. It's not that. We're going to go a romantic love. And so immediately I switched to Romeo and Juliet, Sid and Nancy. And I pulled those two things that I thought were so fascinating about what Dan O'Bannon had done, which was this slow degeneration into zombieism and the awareness that they would have. And it was kind of a metaphor for somebody like a Sid and Nancy, like a descent into drug addiction in a way, right?
Yeah.
So I always, in my mind, that's what
addiction for brains in this case.
Exactly, precisely. So, I constructed a pitch. I went in. I pitched the idea. It was with the executives from Trimark and Brian Usna and Dave Trippett, who was the executive producer. He was the executive from Trimark overseeing it. Dave is a great guy. Doesn't get enough credit, but he was really wonderful in bringing Brian in initially. And I pitched this Romeo and Juliet, Sid and Nancy version. Now, mind you, Joe, this was long before Warm Bodies. No one had done the idea that there's a love story between a zombie and a human.
Sure.
Warm Bodies came much later, and I thought they screwed the whole thing up, but that's just personal.
That was 2011 or 12, something like that.
Yeah, so it was much later. But anyway, at the time, no one had really explored this terrain much at all, actually. It never had been dealt with. I did the pitch, and then they said, I got a call from my agent and said, hey, they loved your take on this. They want to develop this and make it happen. So at the time, Trimark Pictures had bought the sequel rights.
Sure.
But they didn't care what we did. All they knew was they wanted a movie called Return of the Living Dead 3, and we could do whatever we wanted. So it wasn't like they had these expectations and they were trying to shape us in a certain direction. So early on,
that's kind of awesome. I mean,
it doesn't happen a lot. When there's a movie I just watched that a good friend of mine did in Spain that was a similar vibe, where no one was really that worried about the movie, but then they ended up, it's also a zombie movie, which is weird. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Carlos Torrens, and keep an eye out for him. He's an amazing director, Spanish director who's coming up.
Carlos Torrens?
Carlos Torrens, Torrens, Carlos, Carles. Take a look at his stuff. He's an amazing director. We may be working together on something coming up. We'll see if that works out. That's
exciting.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. But anyway, so no one cared what we did. They just wanted the title. And the minute I started, I would go over to Brian Usna's and have meetings. And then he says, well, just show me the pages of the treatment that you've got so far. And, you know, when you're creating something, you feel a little protective. You don't want to like, no, wait till I'm done. Wait till I'm done.
I do know,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it's that vibe where you're not sure. But then Brian broke me down. He said, it's okay. Just show me what you got. So we got into this pattern where I would go off. I would write. I showed him exactly what I had. And then we'd hang out at his house late into the night because he was, I think he was producing a movie called, I forget the name of it. It was, anyway, it was some movie that Brian was very prolific and had done a lot of movies. Society, Reanimator. He produced so many movies and directed a million movies.
Society, very impactful for me.
Yeah, yeah. And then we would meet together. Oh, it was called Ticks. I don't know if you ever heard of the movie Ticks. About these giant ticks that attack people.
Yeah.
So during the day, I'd hang out, maybe go visit the set, and then at night we'd hang together, and he would read my pages every night. And then we'd sit there, and he'd start questioning me about my treatment pages. Well, what does this mean? Why would they do this and this? And so it was one of those things where I would sit there, and he would read the pages, and then he'd give me feedback, and then I'd go off, and I'd redo everything. I'd come back, and we developed the treatment. And he said, well, just give Dave Trippett at Trimark, just give him the pages. Again, same thing. I was like, I don't know. He says, don't worry about it. So, of course, we gave notes back to the studio. He says, something I learned from Brian, which was very helpful, which is don't build a wall between you and the studio and the producers. Be open about it. Because what'll happen is they'll give notes on the first 1, 2 versions, but keep giving them the updates. And pretty soon we didn't get any notes back.
Yeah.
It was like, they're too busy. They just don't want you off doing something that they don't know where you're going.
Sure.
Right.
They want you to go completely rogue. Suddenly
Exactly.
in a different
So
movie.
once they got a sense of what we were doing, we were actually doing the sorry, I don't know how to turn that off. But anyway, once they knew we were doing the treatment and the pitch that I had done, basically, they never gave us much feedback. And it was just like we kept submitting every draft I would rewrite, and then we wouldn't hear anything. We just kept going. We did get some initial feedback, but and it was nothing, strange.
Major.
But Brian was the one who said, we don't have to make this the same tone as the first one. He says, we can go dark and serious if we want. And so I go, oh, okay. So that was Brian's thing. And then Brian also came up with what I always called the 4th act of Return of the Living Dead 3, which is my original pitch ended once they were captured, once Julie and Kurt were captured. I think I had it in a cemetery, as I recall, instead of the bowels of LA.
Sure.
Once she was captured, that was sort of the end of the movie. And I had a little coda, but Brian said, no, we're going to have them bring Julie back, and she's going to be turned into this horrible thing. And then he has to make one final plea, which is going to take the movie into a downer of an ending. And
I actually thought that was brilliant because
that was Brian.
Well, I've always been a fan of when films commit, when they actually just go all out. There's a couple films out there that I always tip my hat to, and this is one of them for that ending. And you know what? Notes, that's a perfect example that sometimes notes are a good thing. And as a writer, I hate them, and sometimes they've been good. So I like it.
Well, Brian was so open with our communication and our collaborative thing. I became such good friends with Brian. We're partners now.
Fantastic.
In a company called Dark Arts Entertainment, which is we have our distribution label now. So we are distributing new movies. Our first movie came out Tuesday, actually, called Terror Firma. And it is, and what our focus is finding emerging genre filmmakers and working with them, and then creating movies that can be put into the marketplace. Anyway, we'll get to that. just to go back.
That's an exciting preview, though.
No, it is. It's very exciting. Dark Arts Entertainment is the name of it. But Brian and I became very, very close friends, and to the degree that our families are close, our kids know each other. They grew up together. It's been one of those rare connections that you make with somebody. He's been always an older brother to me, in that sort of dynamic, and we get along great. And that all started with Return of the Living Dead 3 because he was very open. He says, "Hey, you want to do the work? Come on to the set, hang here." Anytime he had a question about something, he would come over, we'd talk, we'd make adjustments if we needed to. He was just it was like being in a place that was the dream that you dream of, when you get into the film business, and you just get he always heard my opinion. He was all very, very receptive, and we went and we just had a great time on this movie. And then after that movie, I got offered every conceivable horror sequel. Leprechaun, I don't even remember all the franchises. And I didn't see myself being a sequel horror writer at the time. I look back on it now as an older writer. I said, well, that was kind of dumb. I should have done more of those movies and then leveraged in a different way. But I didn't. I said, I'm not going to. I was actually hired to do the Leprechaun sequel, and then I left the job. I quit. It was dumb. I encourage anybody listening there, don't walk away from a film. If you get a gig, don't walk away from it. Sure. Swallow your pride, do the job, do a good job, and don't walk away from it. But anyway, and then I ended up moving my career into a very different, not a different direction. They were all genre movies of some sort, but I didn't continue to do horror sequels. But anyway, so we finished Return 3. I thought it worked great. I was very happy with it. Trimark was thrilled by it. We ended up having this great premiere in Cannes, the Cannes market in the film festival in Cannes, and big screening and big party afterward that MTV sponsored. It was really fun.
Something in the film that I really liked is I liked when you were talking about how, as a zombie or as a dead human being who's going to be a zombie, however you see it, they start the descent into that behavior. And I did appreciate how you made her character, Julie, able to harm herself in order to distract from the pain. I thought it was a very interesting idea because
what's so funny about that is that I was just up in Portland about 2 months ago. I'm on the selection committee for the Portland Horror Film Festival and the HP Lovecraft Festival. Gwen and Brian are amazing, super huge fans, and they run both festivals. And they brought me up to Portland, and we had a screening. Before the movie, we had a zombie burlesque show, a zombie drag show, and then we screened Return 3, and then I did a Q&A afterward.
That sounds like a hell of a night.
It was. I had so much fun. But they made special T-shirts that have a quote from the movie. The pain makes the hunger go away. I think that was the name of it. So there was all these T-shirts with the quote, and they said, "Do you mind if I use a quote from your script to put on T-shirts?" And they did, and I have copies of it, which is exactly what you're referencing.
Yes,
is that idea. So that whole thing, and I'm glad you brought it up, and I'll keep going. I tend to go on once you get me started.
No, I want you to deep dive into whatever details you want. I love it.
What's really fun about that idea is that Brian came up with this idea that he wanted Julie to have this heavily pierced and sort of the creature that he sort of envisioned was what we ended up with, which was Julie with the spikes and all this stuff and all the heavy
body
piercing, the body mutilate, all that stuff. And as a writer, I had to figure out how do I ground that in some sort of emotional truth so that we can play that. And that was where I ended up, which was, she was losing touch with the physical world, but pain made the hunger go away for the brains. It also grounded her in a way. And that ended up connecting with a lot of people, which you sort of mentioned it yourself. And again, it was funny because up in Portland, they ended up putting a T-shirt with that quote on it. But yeah, no, that was a perfect example of Brian, who has these throughout his movies. If you've seen Society and all these big movies, he comes up with big ideas. And as a writer, my job was to try to ground it into the narrative somehow, to try to motivate it through the narrative and through the emotional truth of the story.
Yeah.
And so that's where we ended up. That's where we ended up where we are actually. But in researching that whole body modification stuff, Brian and I would go out. There was a club in Hollywood called Club Fuck. And it was what you would imagine. It was just a super extreme body modification, cinched, corsets and crazy stuff. And then
I thought it would be Club Sinister, but I was way later, I guess.
Club Fuck, that was it. And I went there with the intention of trying to get into their head. What about this? And everyone was just completely like, I don't want to use the term normal, but they was like, no, well, I just thought it was cool.
Yeah, just a casual thing.
Yeah, it was like I was hoping for some big insight into body modification. Got nothing. So then I had to go back and create this thing. Cut to many years later, I'm teaching at the LA Film School, and there is a film teacher there who was teaching editing. And he used to attend Club Fuck when he was. And so I actually did some guest drop-ins on his class. Michael Frost is his name.
Sure.
He teaches there still to this day.
No, I know. He helped me with my thesis film.
Michael Frost he used to go to that club. And so it was really funny for him to hear that when I did a talk in his class. It's a small world, a small community. But anyway, so yeah, that whole thing that you're talking about, that, the pain makes the hunger go away thing, was just me trying to figure that out and how to motivate it based on an idea when Brian said, I want her to look like this.
Yeah. You're like, all right, now I have to make this make sense.
How do I ground that into the narrative of in the character of the piece? But anyway, so we were able to accomplish that, I felt. But Brian always saw Julie's poster, this one here.
Oh, I know.
There.
Yeah.
He always said at the time that that's going to be the poster. It's going to be Julie. And so we brought in, and the cool thing that Brian did, and I was there every day. He said I showed up every day, and I sat there for every take and every moment, and it was a great experience because that doesn't always happen for a writer.
Sure.
But because I was also an associate producer, I think he said, well, you want to earn that credit, so show up. Yeah. So I did. And Brian did something really brilliant on that movie. He broke up the makeup effects and physical effects. And we didn't really do any, we had very little VFX, visual effects. It was, I think, the freezing we did once or twice, very few of that.
Yeah,
But
and that was literally just, I think, at the very beginning and very end when they got the little shot.
Just to show, it was just to show the freezing thing. He brought in multiple teams of effects makeup people. And Steve Johnson did Julie. That was his focus. Is you're going to design Julie, you're going to apply Julie. Steve is an amazing makeup effects guy. He's got an Academy Award. He's like an amazing guy, Steve Johnson.
Definitely shows your qualification there.
Yeah. So he was doing just Julie. Then we had a team, K&B. I think it was, I forget what they were doing. They were either doing the barrel zombies or they were doing another thing. And then, so everybody was divided up. And so you had these multiple teams of special effects people who were all there because they're huge Reanimator fans and just want to be there because they love Return of the Living Dead. And so you had this amazing goodwill on the part of all these multiple teams of makeup effects people doing these effects, and the result speaks for themselves. I mean, we would shoot that, the barrel creatures, and they were all puppeted, and the thing where the guy pulls his head away and the flesh comes out and there's the skull under. That is stuff that I didn't come up with that. That was makeup effects. Those guys, I forget what I wrote, but I wrote in the script something to think, okay, a barrel turns over and the barrel zombies start breaking out.
Yeah, sure.
These guys all came up with these amazing, beautiful signature effects.
Well, it makes sense because the same way you were able to do what you wanted. They said, we just want the name, have fun. You were able to do that for them. We have barrel zombies. Have fun. Make barrel zombies.
Barrel zombies. What are they going to be? I don't know. We'll find out. And then, which was also really fun because one of the benefits of being involved in the production the whole time was that I was with Brian the whole process. We sat together for storyboarding. We sat together for meetings of makeup effects. We sat together. So as this was happening, I was rewriting the script constantly. If you look at the production draft, there's like blue pages and pink pages and salmon pages and yellow pages and more salmon pages. And it was like I was constantly rewriting the script, and we were storyboarding. The work we did with the storyboard artist, Pete Sholey, was we would come up with more ideas. And I kept going back to the script and incorporating them. And so the script itself reflected exactly what we were shooting because I was there modifying the script the entire time with all this input.
Well, it makes sense, right? You got to make it all track.
Yeah, exactly. And then also the storyboards were very accurate. And it was funny because some people didn't trust the storyboards. And Brian said, no, this is what we are shooting. Look at the script, look at the storyboards, everything coincided because I was constantly upgrading the script all along the way. So funny coda to that process was at the end we were toward the end of the shoot, and I got a letter from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. And they said to me, due to the historic nature of how this movie fits into the genre of zombies, we would love to have a script of yours, the script from the movie for our permanent collection. I think it's I forget the name of them, I forget the name of the library, the Academy Library,
sure,
where they collect all the scripts, right? And I said,
quite an honor.
Yeah, I was thrilled. I said, okay, I will give you a script for the permanent collection at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. So what I proceeded to do was I took my original reading draft, or my first script, right? And I rewrote an entire version that incorporated all the changes I had made during production. And I was able to keep a lot of the original ideas from my reading draft, my first initial drafts.
Sure.
And that's what's in the collection at the Academy, is this hybrid version, so that my grandkids will show up there and say, oh my God, he wrote exactly what the movie was.
That's
no
awesome.
one will know, except for now they know because of this, but
it's like it was all planned that way. Yeah,
exactly. But it really, of course, wasn't. I was just writing it as we went, and I was able to do a final version and give it to the Academy so that I came off looking great. But it was one of those experiences that you don't often get in the film industry. That yeah, it's hard to say I've had another experience as fun as making that movie. Brian Usna was so great and so inclusive, and just great. And he kept topping and challenging. He would top us. You know, he would say, "Do something." You know, but what about this? But what about that? And so it was always working for somebody that's always challenging you.
Well, the best collaboratives are people who do challenge you, right? I mean, that's the whole point. Bring it up.
Yeah. Yep. Bring it up a notch. What I don't believe this. Why would they do this? Why would they do that? You
Sure.
know, okay, I gotta fix that. So I would go off and fix it and come back. And it was a great collaboration. And again, like I say, one that continues to this day.
Well, I mean, that is awesome. I love the film personally because I did like how you took a completely different take. Because as you mentioned, the second Return of the Living Dead is a little bit of a rehash, and I feel like zombie films in general have an issue with that because you have the initial outbreak, and then they usually have, what are the survivors doing? Don't misunderstand. I'm sure Walking Dead, I loved it. It was great, but that focused too much on the people. So I really did appreciate, and it was funny you brought up Warm Bodies because I thought when I saw that they ripped off Return of the Living Dead 3.
Okay.
I know it was based
You
on a
mentioned
book.
you mentioned the word ripped off. Okay. Have you taken a close look at Resident Evil? Okay. So what happened, and I out of the blue, I'm talking the video game. All right.
Sure, yeah, I know you.
Out of the blue, a friend of mine who is he did a movie called Beyond the Gates. Great talented guy.
Seen that one.
And Jackson Stewart is his name. Sent me. He says, "Oh, by the way, John, have you seen this?" And he sent me scenes from the video game that were exactly the same as the opening sequence with the control room and the zombie. And I go, holy shite, this video game stole wholesale from Return of the Living Dead 3,
Yeah.
Resident Evil, with the whole government, the whole militaristic angle, all that. I wouldn't have, I mean, I thought, oh, it's got to be a coincidence. No, they took a lot of our mythology and created Resident Evil from it. Now, I wish I had money and, you know, on the payroll for Resident Evil.
Somehow a connection to that.
Holy crap. But
okay, so are we going to say that there might be 4 timelines then?
I would say definitely Resident Evil, based on what I saw, borrowed from Return 3. Now, is that copyrightable? No, of course not.
No. You know,
it's you're inspiring. It's an inspiration from one thing to the next. Warm Bodies, you know, what all that stuff. To me, it's about, when we talk about genre movies, I always look for movies that people remember. Take a moment and they push the genre in a way we haven't quite seen before. It takes us a little bit somewhere we haven't gone. And all of those subsequent iterations, you know, Shaun of the Dead, Resident Evil, all those things that became very popular, sort of the baseline, right, was different for them than it was for me. My baseline was Night of the Living Dead and the original Return, right?
Sure.
So then we did Return 3, and that became a baseline. And so Resident Evil, they're going to come off of that mythology
and
in their own
builds.
event, yeah, in their own inventive way. But people lose sight of the fact that this whole idea of, you know, the military, the chemical, the trioxin, that was all Return of the Living Dead, right? Yeah. And that wasn't there before. The brains thing, more brains, that all, but we sort of accept it as part of the genre lore, but it all keeps progressing.
Well, I will say brains, like in general, like the zombie go brains. That is Return of the Living Dead, 100%. That's that origin.
Yeah. Well, our challenge in 3 was, Brian said to me, why?
Yeah.
Why do they crave brains? And so I settled on this idea that, you know, it was they're trying to get the neurons, the electrical connections from the brain is what they're attracted to. And then I came up with the modification to Dan O'Bannon's mythology, which was we have a gun that can freeze them to control them. And so that was the thing that we added, which was as a gun, it freezes them to stop them. And then the competing concept was you chamber them in these exoskeletons.
Yeah.
That control them. And of course it goes horribly wrong as Sarah Douglas discovers.
Well, you know, go figures. Trying to contain zombies have never historically worked out too well.
Yeah, I don't think we have a movie if we can control the zombies.
Now, even if you trust them like Riverman, next thing you
Yeah.
know, you get killed off screen.
It's so funny because Basil Wallace, who played Riverman, just appeared again, mentioning this distribution label that Brian and I have now.
Sure.
A guy submitted a movie and he says, "Oh, it's got a lot of people in it, but you probably don't know who they are." Well, one of them was Basil Wallace. I said, "No, I know who Basil Wallace was. Riverman. He was in Return 3." It's very funny. But yeah,
once again, small world.
Yeah, well, the genre world is very small, and I was just at Midsummer Scream, which is a convention at Long Beach Convention Center, and that was last month. And I was there signing novels that I had written, and I was signing screenplays for people. And that moment, it's like seeing a pod person. Oh, I connect with that movie, you know, and it's like you realize the power of the genre is profound. I mean, people really connect with the work. You know, it's not about me, it's about the movies, it's about horror, it's about using that genre, that massive, cool engine of tropes and ideas that people tap into. And it's our job, the way I look at it as a creative, is to use those tropes and those genres, but try to do something that you bring something new to it so that you're not seeing the exact same thing you've seen a million times. Trying to find something that will engage the fans a little more, you know. So
Well,
that's
horror fans, man. They're some of the most if they love something, they love it and they deep dive. And I know as a fact that community usually appreciates taking different looks at genres that they, you know, that they love.
Yeah. Well, I always say, because I got a lot of love at Midsummer Scream. There was a lot of people and they were buying my novels and based on Return 3. And I always have this saying that the goth community and the horror loving community, they're really, really well adjusted, nice people
Usually.
who are pretending to be mean. And hippies are really mean people pretending to be nice. I've found that to be universal. Well, I shouldn't say universally true, but I'm sure there's some nice hippies. But
at risk of a blanket statement, but you know.
Right, exactly. But no, I have found horror fans to be very well adjusted. The ones I've encountered to be very, really sweet and nice people. But you're talking to them, they look terrifying, and I'm like, oh, you know, because they were in,
exactly.
You know, they've got their cosplay going, and they're all terrifying looking. But generally speaking, I should say.
Well, I had a best friend who was in a horrorcore group, which is the horror genre of music. They sing as if they were serial killers, things like that. So
you go.
He's on stage saying some of the most horrible things in the entire world. And then I'd go over his house and he's sitting down watching cartoons, just relaxing, like, "Hey, how's it going, man?"
Right. A friend of mine often wondered, I've been asked this a million times, why do you work in the dark side of the spectrum? What is that about? They say, well, you seem so normal. whatever that means. You seem normal and friendly and happy. Why are your movies so dark? And I thought a lot about this. And I'm like, because I guess I do everything but broad comedy. And I finally thought, well, there's an explanation for this. Because I'm an optimist at heart. I really am. In Return of the Living Dead 3, it's, true love conquers death. It conquers everything. True love will go on. Even as they die together, you realize that love has triumphed.
I mean, she didn't go completely off the deep end, right? She still had a little bit of herself at the end.
Where are we? Where are we? And he says, where we belong, and they're together in death. That love bond continues through death. And people ask me, well, I say, well, no, I'm a pretty optimistic person. They say, well, I can see that while I talk to you. And I kind of figured it out at one point with a metaphor. I was taking a charcoal drawing class. I don't know if you've done any sort of
Columbia briefly.
Okay. Well, in charcoal sketching and drawing, what you do is on the blank page, you define the shadows to illuminate the light. And I thought that was what I do. I define shadows, which by nature illuminate the light side of the human condition. So yes, I focus on the shadows and I define them very clearly, but everything I've done has always had some sort of, I think, and I'm hoping, some sort of beautiful side to it.
Yeah.
Some sort of upbeat, maybe not a happy ending, but some sort of positive outcome for the human condition. That's sort of how I define it.
Well, it sounds weird to say, but the reason why we identify with things that are bittersweet or sad or horrific is because you are right that it shows. What is it? You can't appreciate something that tastes good until you've eaten something that tastes awful.
There you go.
Yeah.
Define those shadows. Define the shadows, and you'll reveal the light.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I really do think it is a beautiful sentiment, but I want to ask you now. So, if you can't count your own zombie film, which zombie, any iteration, do you feel as though is your personal favorite? If you cannot pick your own.
One, that's a hard one. I mean, obviously, Dawn of the Dead is the original, of course, not the remake, but that is a pretty profound movie. I think because it starts broadening the metaphor. You know what I mean? It felt like Romero was understanding what he was dealing with, and then he said, I'm going to broaden this metaphor, and I'm going to make it about something that we can all connect with. And I thought that was an inspiration.
Sure.
So Romero's Dawn of the Dead, probably.
Focus
Night
on
of the Living Dead. I mean, exactly, in the mall. But I think that obviously Night of the Living Dead was such a mind-blowing thing, but it did have its sort of contained quality to it. Sure. But his sequel kind of said, okay, and the thing about Romero is he never really wanted to make zombie movies. He wanted to make action movies. He wanted to make adventure movies. I don't know if you ever saw his motorcycle movie, The
Knights.
Yeah. I mean, that's what he wanted to do. But
actually, it was Knight Rider. It was called Knight Riders. Yeah,
that's right, Knight Rider. And you see these different movies that he did, but I think that movie, to me, in terms of just zombie genre, really said, okay, we can bring this idea, this metaphor, right, and purpose it out into a bigger idea. And I think that was pretty amazing to me. I mean, and that's what I did in my own little way, trying to bring it into, a love story for the Romeo and Juliet, Sid and Nancy type thing, to try to attach that metaphor to the zombie world.
Sure. And honestly, I thought it was really effective. Like, I did feel for it because every time the character broke down, after she had, for lack of a better word, she fell off the wagon, if you will, of the
Yes.
zombie wagon, and she had real remorse. And
Yeah.
when she realized that her hunger and her desire to make the pain go away through the devouring of human flesh, uh, it was more important to her than being with him in that moment, and that
Yeah.
scared her. Like I've unfortunately had addicts in my life that I've talked to, and they talk about how that's a very similar feeling when the realization that this hunger is going to beat anything else.
Well, this is the most amazing kind of confluence that happened to us. Was we were casting Julie. We were looking for the actor. And my conceit had always been Sid and Nancy. The partner is descending into drug abuse, right? And I said, if we can find an actor that can tap into that emotion, that's what we would want to play. Along comes Melinda Clark, Mindy. She had played Nancy in the stage production of Sid and Nancy in LA.
Wow.
And we had two parts to our audition. One was the quote unquote straight dramatic stuff, right? And then Brian would say, here's a bowl of spaghetti. Eat it like you're eating brains. And that was the dividing line. And so we would do these. And the minute she walked in and said she played Nancy and Sid and Nancy, I'm going, holy shit, this is
That's serendipitous.
crazy. But she tapped into the addiction thing that you're talking about. And then when she was devouring the spaghetti, I said, okay, that's the addiction. That's it. Had figured that out. So that was pretty cool to be able to, I often liken, for the number of movies that I've done, I always, that get produced, I always say that when you're writing a script, as long as you're emotionally truthful on some level, it's like shooting a flare up into the night. And if you're truthful emotionally, other people will see that, and the actor will connect to it and find that and bring it to life for you. And that's been consistent for the movies that I've done. I've had the good fortune of doing a couple movies with the late, great William Hurt, who won the Academy Award for Kiss of the Spider Woman.
William Hurt, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
loved
did.
him. I loved him in Dune, that Sci-Fi Channel original Benji series. I know it sounds weird, but
Yeah.
that was the first time I was introduced to Dune. So in my head, he was always, Father Atreides.
Have you ever seen Altered States?
I have
Yeah.
recently, actually.
He is amazing. And so I was doing a movie called Contaminated Man, and we had Peter Weller and William Hurt in
RoboCop.
that movie. RoboCop, yeah, and William Hurt. And initially we thought, well, Peter Weller is going to play the lead, and then no, he wanted to play what becomes the antagonist, and William Hurt ended up playing the protagonist in Contaminated Man. So we shot the whole thing in Europe. I went to Budapest where we shot it, and I got to meet William, and we kind of hit it off as a producer, writer of the piece. We connected on creative levels, and years later, when I was doing Hellgate with William Hurt and Cary Elwes, I wrote that part for him, and it's that whole idea that you need an actor that's going to sell your crazy scheme, right? Because in Hellgate, I'm sorry, in Contaminated Man, it was about a contagion in which Peter Weller was contaminated, and anything he touches dies. So the concept, and that was based on a pitch that I sold, and it's the inverse of the Midas, right? Anything Midas touched turned to gold.
Turns to gold, yeah.
I did the opposite, and so this whole crazy idea it's all make believe. But when you hire an actor like William Hurt to sell your idea, he commits on such a basic level, emotionally truthful level, that you buy it. I mean, Altered States works because you freaking believe this guy, right?
Yeah.
You believe he's going into that chamber and this is actually happening.
It's like I'm opening up my mind so much, I'm changing.
Yeah, it's just it's crazy, and I never forget that because and then I later directed him in Hellgate, and same kind of thing. He had to sell crazy concepts, but it was William Hurt, and as long as he could understand it on an emotionally truthful level, he could make the audience believe it. So
Sign of a
that's
great
the
actor.
that's the power of a great actor. You know, it really is. It's profound what a good actor can do to sell your crazy ideas. And same thing with Mindy in Return 3. The minute she tapped into that addiction thing, that was it. She captured it. It was something like you say that you can recognize.
Well, she sold it for many reasons. That was a beautiful, beautiful performance. So much so that years later, I'm watching Firefly, and I recognize her immediately because she played a character where she was running a brothel in one of the episodes, which is a sci-fi cowboy television show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think her face is permanently etched in my head because of that poster. In 90. In 93, I was a little boy and in a Blockbuster walking around. Yeah, and that was one that definitely gave me a few nightmares.
Well,
I
I'll
assume.
tell you the funny part about that is that I make wine up in Central California with my brother-in-law and the family kind of concerned. It's not public, it's just for us.
Sure,
We
yeah.
we do 120 cases a year, and it's all I give it to. I'm involved with some charities that I donated to. But through the whole wine world in Napa, I connected with some wine critics. And this one particular wine critic, I was talking to him. It's funny because everyone in the wine world wants to hear about movies, and everyone in the movie world wants to hear about the wine world. And so I have something to talk about no matter who I'm with. And this particular wine critic said, "Oh my God, Return of the Living Dead. I lost my virginity to that movie." And what? Oh yeah, no, it was like a thing. He was like, he was with his girlfriend. They were watching them. I'm like, okay, great. Who knew?
I'm glad I did that for you. But I think that's a common thing that horror films have, right? Because you sitting now with a horror movie, put your arm around someone's shoulder, it's one thing leads to another. Yeah, that is good. And you got to wonder
I'll take
how
it.
many other people has that happened? How many
I've
babies
heard a
are you
lot.
possibly
I actually,
responsible
my publishers for Encyclopocalypse have the same reaction that you did. They love this. They love Julie's picture. They were like in love with her, which
Yeah.
in a kind of slightly disturbing but attractive way.
Well, it's the Crow fans as well. You know what I mean? There's something about that early '90s, late '80s goth look that really does it for certain people.
That's
Oh,
fun.
you know what? So I have another question for you, though, real quick, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, no
And
worries.
then we could wrap it up after that. And my final
Okay.
question for you is now, let's say right now you were given what you were given back then. You get to make the next Return of the Living Dead. Is there anything that you didn't get to do in the last one, or an idea that you've thought of since then that you might want to explore for a potential future sequel?
Yeah, Brian and I talked a lot about this actually. And we keep landing on this militaristic exploitation of zombies.
Sure.
And for some reason that kept surfacing. So we had a couple ideas that we kicked around that we both seemed to like. Then of course, like, the other franchises sort of may have co-opted. I don't know, whatever. In our idea, we wanted to go further into that idea about sending zombies into the battlefields. But when we were doing, I wrote an actual sequel to Reanimator.
Really?
Yeah, and here, I know this is a podcast, but there's a thing called Untold Horror, right?
Yeah.
And this book is like a coffee table book. And what they did was they went, and the title is When There's No More Room in Development Hell, which I thought, I'm in. Let's be in that book. And John Landis, Romero, Dante, Brian, of course. And it was all about movies that didn't get made that we had written. And here is, in this book, of course, is Reanimator. The movie, the Reanimator sequel we didn't get to make.
What page is that for anyone who has the book?
That is page 87.
Nice.
And all the artwork is in here and pictures of Brian. And I have a lot of quotes in it that were, because we did a whole interview. They interviewed us about the development and, all the pictures of the artwork that we had done for it. And it's this great idea, which is the sequel to Reanimator. But in it is this component that we never got to do for Return. And if you get a chance, get this book. It's really a cool book, Untold Horror.
All right.
But in it are some of the ideas that we had kicked around for another Return sequel. So
that's where I need to look.
Yeah. So who knows? Someday maybe that sequel to Reanimator may surface. But the script is around and it was written about as one of those things that we didn't get to do. It was going to be expensive for one of the reasons that didn't happen. But who knows? Maybe in the future that'll come up. But it does incorporate a lot of the ideas that we wanted to do in Return 3.
Well, I can assure you they didn't explore any of those in the sequels. I believe the last one was called Rave to the Grave, and everyone was taking Z, which they take the chemical and made it into like ecstasy.
Yeah.
And so they were, it was.
I actually never saw them.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
No, I never saw them, but I had this weird encounter with the guy who was selling the movies.
Sure.
And he apologized to me. I said, listen, go make money. Go make your movies. Don't you know the apologies? He said, no, they really weren't living up. Oh, we should never. I'm like, I don't care. I mean, come on. It is what it is. Maybe it connects with somebody. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? But I actually never saw them.
Well, maybe someone saw it and then looked up the old ones, right? That's usually how it works. Is some new thing comes out. If anyone's like, oh, there's more of these, I'll check them out. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then they can come across your masterpiece.
There you go. That's the idea.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for being a part of this interview. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Just to throw this out there, if you keep your listeners, look for us. It's Dark Arts Entertainment. Brian and I have a distribution label. We are, finding emerging filmmakers, as I mentioned, genre filmmakers. We're working with them, shaping the movies and making them good for the marketplace. Our first one is Terra Firma. We have a movie called Snuff Queen coming out. And actually, Zizek's Road, I remastered in 4K.
Wow.
And it is coming out soon in 4K in a completely special edition.
Nice.
And
you, of course, wrote and directed that one.
I wrote, directed, and produced that movie. Yeah, it was the first movie I directed with Katherine Heigl and Tom Sizemore. Sadly, he passed away, but we dedicate the new disc to him. So that's going on, and then also you can find my novels. I have 3 novels out there currently. One's called Truck Stop. There's another one called Killing Time, and there's a novel called It Comes Back. And all these novels are sort of Stephen King-ish. They're all in the genre. So if you like Return 3, go read my novels. They're available everywhere books are, basically. They're Encyclopocalypse Productions Publications puts them out. That company was started by the original Clive Barker, the guy who worked with Clive Barker for years, went on, Mark Miller, and opened this publishing company called Encyclopocalypse. So check out my novels, check out the new movies coming from Dark Arts Entertainment. If you Google Dark Arts Entertainment, there's a lot of articles that have been recently written about our launch and the movies that will be coming up. Those are my plugs.
That's fantastic. And I definitely will be looking that up, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. It's great to see you.
Definitely. And from everyone here at Earthling Entertainment, thanks.
My pleasure. Anytime. Give me a call.
I got to be honest. It was an absolute pleasure to interview him. Did you like it?
Oh, dude, that was sick. Like,
I learned a lot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, filmmaking is just, I personally always can't hear enough stories about the process, but I am a filmmaker, so that explains why. Like everything else on this show today, this week, it is a zombie game. Isn't that right, Ryan?
That's right, Joe.
Haha.
Eat your brains, man.
Great. So we have 3 contestants because Ryan is going to be a contestant. I am going to be the host. We also have
I'll do my best.
Well, thank you. We also have 2 other contestants. Please introduce yourselves.
I'm Tessa Philbrick. I'm an 871 local union production accountant in Los Angeles. I've been doing that for a couple years. Love making movies, and I'm glad to be here. Trivia time.
Huzzah!
Yay! Welcome, Tessa.
Thank you. Thank you.
And my name is Daniel Pico. I'm a writer and director, and happy to be here. Lifelong horror fan. Let's do this.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I love it.
The Daniel
yeah.
Pico.
Woo!
Okay, guys. So what I'm going to do now is ask you all, please give me your individual buzzer sound one at a time. We'll start with you, Ryan.
Ooh, TV.
Excellent. Star Wars to the end. Tessa, go ahead.
How about brains?
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, what do you got for us?
I was going to use something from Venture Brothers, considering this crowd, but then I stopped myself. No, because this is being recorded, and I might want to run for public office one day. So
You're on the wrong show.
I decided to go with a classic of.
I like it.
Perfect.
Excellent.
I know I'm going to forget to do it the second I want to answer a question. I probably should have went with, oh.
You know, why not?
Yeah.
My favorite was just something like that, like just a really loud, quick one. That way there's never a question of who's going first. But hey, you are sealed your fate.
I think I should actually reconsider. Is it okay? Can I make it just, oh?
Yeah,
I
sure.
will allow it.
I think that's going to be my natural reaction. So
Perfect. Well, if everyone is ready, we are going to begin. Excellent. All right. So here is the first question. Buzz in if you know the answer. What was the name of George A. Romero's first zombie movie?
Utini.
Ryan.
Night of the Living Dead.
That is correct.
Yeah.
All right, so most of these are multiple choice, but considering that one was a warm-up, essentially, we have 1 point for Ryan. Question number 2. How many Walking Dead TV shows are there? This does not include webisodes.
Brains.
Tessa, what do you got?
4.
And
Oh, really?
yeah, and since this is not multiple choice, does anyone else want to
Utini.
Ryan?
3.
No.
Darn.
oh.
All right, we got Dan.
5.
That is incorrect. Okay. The answer is 7.
Holy.
37.
I would like to know, what are those 7 incarnations?
Oh,
Well,
don't worry. He will tell
There
you.
is a bonus question if you
Oh,
can
okay.
name the 7, but since no one got it correct, I will just tell you. All right. So it is The Walking Dead, then Fear the Walking Dead, then
I forgot about that one.
The Walking Dead World Beyond, then
What?
Yep. Tales of the Walking Dead, which is an anthology show, and that is at 4. Then we have Walking Dead Dead City,
which is the epilogue with Maggie and Negan. Then we have Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, which is the epilogue starring Daryl Dixon. Then we have The Walking Dead The Ones Who Live, which is the epilogue with Rick and Michonne. So 7. And those are all on television. Yeah.
Right now.
Yep, that's a thing.
I dare say they've forgotten Walking Dead. Who gives a fuck?
No, Robot Chicken did that.
Walking Dead. They are now jogging. We're
Excellent.
Walking Dead cardio. Yeah.
I always wanted to do
shit.
I always wanted to do a parody with bread, right? And have it be toast as the zombies and have it called the toasted bread. Well, here we are. Question number 3, which I consider the hardest question in this game. The question is, which of these Star Wars novels feature zombies? A. Star Wars Crimson Club. B. Star Wars Red Harvest. C. Star Wars Bloodline. Or D. Star Wars Dark Disciple. Oh, we got
I'm
Dan.
gonna go with D.
D. Dark Disciple. That is incorrect.
I was gonna say that's not it. I know that book. I know that book. I was gonna say Utini.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Bloodline?
That is incorrect. Bloodline
Damn.
is the novel where Princess Leia is revealed to have her lineage between Darth Vader and is almost kicked off the Senate.
You're right. This is a hard question because it's not like the novel.
To be clear, the rest of the questions are way less hard. I should have put this at the end.
Brains.
All right, Tessa.
B. Red Harvest.
That is correct. In the novel, which takes place in Star Wars, the Old Republic era, a Sith Academy, there's experiments done with a red flower that causes zombieism. Yeah, that's a thing.
Evidently.
All right, question number what? What are you gonna? You got to
say there's a Star Wars novel about a what do you call it? A political crisis.
There's a lot of
Shocking.
a lot of Star Wars novels about political crisis. There's a lot of talk in the novels. All right, so question number 4. If you guys are ready, which of these zombie video games spawned 2 feature films? A. Dead Rising. B. Left 4 Dead. C. Dead Island. Or D. Dying Light.
Great.
We Tessa had it.
Brains got it. Brains got it.
Yeah.
B. Left 4 Dead.
B. Left 4 Dead is incorrect.
No.
Dan.
I thought
Dead
that was
Island.
right too.
Dead Island.
Dead Island is incorrect.
What?
Yeah.
All right, Utini, A. Just gonna throw it out there. Why not?
I don't know. Do I give you the point when you're just throwing it out there, Ryan?
I win.
The answer is A. Dead Rising. Crackle made
knew
2
that.
original movies, which were Dead Rising Watchtower and Dead Rising.
My favorite.
I believe In-Game. I'm not sure. It's Dead Rising something else.
Oh, dude.
Now,
Classic.
this feels
Classics,
like
my favorite.
This feels like our feet were swept out from under us because I was half expecting you to say House of the Dead, which did come out with 2 movies that had theatrical releases.
That is true.
Or Resident Evil. Resident Evil.
Resident Evil had 7.
Many.
Silent Hill.
2.
It's not really zombies. That's hell.
I guess you're right. Yeah, that was like a weird thing.
I
Yeah.
love Silent Hill games. Love.
All right. So this is kind of hilarious because so far we are after 4 questions. Ryan has 2, and that's it. So you guys,
Hey, I got a point.
you did. You got a point. That's true. Fair.
I guess we'll let you have one.
All right. Fair enough. Question number 5. Which George A. Romero film was adapted to a television show for the Sci-Fi Channel in 2021? Was it A, Night of the Living Dead, B, Dawn of the Dead, C, Day of the Dead, or D, Land of the Dead?
Oh.
All
C.
right. C,
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead. That is correct.
Yeah.
Everyone's catching up. We're getting warmed up here. We're getting good. Halfway
Put
through
some
the game.
points on the board. Put some points.
It's
on
like
the board.
that sweet spot when
I
you
believe
learn-
that was Bloodlines, correct?
No, it was just Day of the Dead, and it only lasted one season. It wasn't bad. The gimmick in that one was the whole season took place over one day, and you follow different characters and their stories interconnected. So one episode you'll see someone run in the room and be like, "Where's my arm?" And then in the next episode you'll see why that guy didn't have an arm. That kind of thing.
And then the audience is like, we want more. It's like, dude, we said Day of the Dead. The day's over.
Well, they did not want more, evidently, because there's no season 2.
It's over. Day of the Dead.
Come on.
I have to admit, I answered that one with a completely different thing in mind. I'm just happy I was right.
But you definitely were, because Day of the Dead Bloodlines was just a film. It was a good film.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen. I know that Mina Suvari was in the Day of the Dead remake.
Yeah.
that they did. Yeah, and because I as I've worked with her, so I knew that one going in. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, Vin Rames was in that one too.
Was Ving Rhames? Yes, he was, and so was Jesse Eisenberg.
I don't remember if he was in that one, but I haven't seen that in forever. Wouldn't surprise me.
He was Bub.
Jesse Eisenberg did some weird stuff in his early career. He did a vampire movie with Wes Craven and Christina Ricci. I mean, go figure.
Well,
Not a
I thought it was
vampire, a
werewolf.
werewolf.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Call it that.
I liked it.
You're the one.
I was the one. The CGI was awful. I will give it that. Question number 6. How many Return of the Living Dead films are there?
Oh.
Daniel.
4.
That is incorrect.
Utini.
Ryan.
7.
That is the other answer. No, the answer's no.
Even I was confused.
Return of the Living Dead.
I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Brains.
That's up.
3.
That is incorrect. The
Wow.
answer is 5.
Ugh.
All right.
And
Between us,
counting
the
of
average
Return
was
of the
right.
Living Dead shall be 5.
Well, the average was pretty close. Well, I will say that the sequels, all of them, they came out because that would have been the bonus question, was naming the sequels, is Return of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead 2, Return of the Living Dead 3, then jump to 2005, and we have Return of the Living Dead Necropolis, and my favorite title, is Return of the Living Dead Rave to the Grave.
Oh,
Now-
that's right.
Return of the
Rave to the grave.
Rave to the
You know,
grave.
I think it's usually when it comes to figuring out the sequels to stuff that goes a lot of it direct to video. It's just you kind of like think of how many you know and then just add one more.
Kinda, right?
So
Like
it's usually the answer is usually, well, it's like, well, they made that extra. It's like Carnosaur 1 through 3. Well, there probably was a 4th.
there
It's
probably
the same.
was.
There probably was a 4th.
Perfect example of that is there is a third Problem Child that nobody knows about. It was called Problem Child 3 Junior in Love, and it was a made-for-TV movie, and John Ritter did return, and no one, you'll see it on IMDb if you look for it, but no one knows. It's not streaming anywhere.
No one's looking for
talks
it, though.
about it.
So the reason they don't talk about it is because in the trivia on IMDb, it's the actual reason that he died.
Oh my God, that must have been lingering. That festered.
The shame
Anyway.
killed him.
Anywho.
You know, see, I
Question.
screwed up my joke earlier about the political scandal with Star Wars, and I was like, wow, that wasn't what I was trying to get to was like Vadergate. Like that's what I was gonna try and call it. It's like
Vadergate.
Vadergate is what you got
Vadergate.
kicked out of the Galactic Senate for.
Well done. You know what? I'm glad we
Got my
eventually
joke
got
reading.
there. Question number 7. Which of these zombie movies is a musical? I repeat, which of these zombie films is a musical? A. Zombie Strippers. B. The Girl with All the Gifts. C. Train to Busan. Or D. Anna and the Apocalypse.
Oh.
All right, Daniel.
Anna and the Apocalypse.
That is correct.
I knew that one.
Well, I knew it wasn't Girl with All the Gifts, that's for sure.
You know, I thought if
Certainly
you
not
haven't
true.
heard of that movie, it might trip somebody up because they're like musical. She has all the gifts. Maybe that gift is singing. You never know.
That would be amazing.
Joe,
Yep.
I love you.
I love you too.
I love
man.
you.
Although, you know, Broadway one day might make the musical version of Girl with All the Gifts. I mean, they've done The Fly and so many others. I would find it. Oh, see, I always got to wait until Tessa's drinking something to say some shit.
That
That's
is
what's
funny.
up.
I recently purchased on Vudu, which is now called Fandango at Home, because they thought, why not make the title longer and stupid? Anyways, on Fandango at Home, I bought the Toxic Avenger musical has been released.
The Toxic Avenger musical, is this the one with Peter Dinklage?
No, the Peter Dinklage film is basically it did well in then they did their festival run, but they're having trouble finding distribution because no marketing team knows what to do with it because apparently it's just super fucking bizarre. So right now it's just being held, and Peter Dinklage, when last asked, has no idea when it will be released, but it does exist.
Aw,
It's out there. It's just not out there.
damn.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to that one.
Well, you know, it will
Mhm.
probably come out. It's just there's no telling how long it will take. Dun 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 dun. Question number 8. Which of these zombie movies, which of these movies have the outbreak being started by tainted chicken nuggets? A. The Dead Don't Die. B. Cooties, not cuties. C. Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Or D. Fido.
France.
All right, Tessa.
B. Cooties.
And that is correct. That
was
film-
not what I was gonna guess.
Yeah, Cooties. It takes place at a grade school. At lunch, they get tainted chicken nuggets. Elijah Wood is stars
So
in it.
much fun. It's so you know how we always say children can be ravenous little monsters?
Yeah.
Constantly.
Well, we filmed it. There's proof now. Those little maniacs, we caught them on camera. They're killing people.
We know.
Yeah. And it
We
was
know.
the fun little twist of that film is it only affected you if you hadn't gone through puberty. So they're at a grade school and all these little kid zombies are attacking the teachers or anyone who's an adult. It's a lot of fun. I do endorse it. And that brings Tessa to 2. So far, guys, we are at question number 9. There's only 2 more questions, and the score is Ryan 2, Tessa 2, and Daniel 2. Without even trying, we've actually have a pretty close game here, guys.
This is awesome. Hell yeah.
I wouldn't say we
feel
weren't
disappointed.
trying. We just keep
Yeah.
missing a bunch.
No. We have all tried our hardest.
I know
This
you have.
this
Ryan.
has been a triathlon of knowledge.
Question number 9. And which of these zombie romance movies star Anton Yelchin and Alexandra Daddario? Is it A. Burying the Ex, B. Life After Beth, C. My Boyfriend Is Back, or D. Warm Bodies?
Oh,
Daniel,
A.
Burying the Ex.
Utini.
That is correct.
Oh, it is? Oh,
Yeah.
damn.
No, he's
I thought
right.
it was
It's
B.
Burying the Ex.
I thought it was B.
No. B is Life After Beth, which is a lot of fun.
Aubrey Plaza.
Aubrey Plaza, exactly.
Yep.
It was. I don't know why I mixed that up.
My favorite
messed
is
up.
C, My Boyfriend's Back, because it was in the early 90s and it was super campy. It doesn't really star anyone that I'm aware of in a big way.
It's got Tom Everett Scott in it, I think.
Well, there you go. That's why you're
Yeah,
on
yeah,
this
yeah.
game. You
Yeah.
have knowledge.
I've seen the movie, that's why.
Fair enough. I
Y'all
know,
know a lot more than me.
Well, I know Philip Seymour Hoffman plays like a bully who gets an axe in the head. He is a very small part in that film. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Final question. Everybody ready? Number 10. In 2007, George A. Romero rebooted his zombie franchise with what film?
Oh.
It is multiple choice. Do you want to hear the answers? You just want to guess?
I just want to guess.
Go ahead.
Diary of the Dead.
That is correct. The answer is D. Diary of the Dead.
My man wins.
Yeah, and that brings Daniel to 4, Tessa to 2, and Ryan to 2. So,
Hey, it was a fair game. Good job, dude.
It was a fair game. We
You
gave
wanna-
Daniel just enough time to get warmed up, and now he'll house us in any trivia that comes after.
Do you
We
want to
will never invite him again.
Do you want to have the two of them fight to the undead for second place?
Well done, guys. I got to be honest. It took me really hard not to make a question about the song Zombie because I thought it'd be cheeky. But I think this went really well. I appreciate it.
I
Thank
think
you
it
all
did
for
as well.
joining
Hell
us.
yeah.
Daniel, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
I currently have a TV show in distribution called Razor. That
Awesome.
I co-wrote and I directed an episode, and I was the co-producer of. It stars Mina Savari, David Bianchi, Richard Cabral, Emilio Rivera, and Danny Trejo, and Christopher Marquette. And it's a great sci-fi experience in the dark after space of black market crime and neural implants. So that's my little pitch. It's on the Gala network, and you can watch it for free.
Awesome, man.
That is riveting. Great, cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for our first annual trivia game with guests. When we've done this before, it was just Ryan, and we were like, we need to invite some other people. So thank you.
All right, you got to hand it to Daniel. He won. He did it.
Yep. I had a lead there for a little bit.
You were
but,
doing pretty good. For a second there, I was like, oh, Ryan's gonna win.
I thought I don't know. I had a feeling I was gonna. I thought I had it. Thought I had it. That was fun.
It didn't quite happen though. Didn't quite happen.
No,
That's all right.
No. So at the beginning, we talked about what would be the worst place to be during a zombie outbreak. So Joe, where would you think would be like the best place? Like where would you make your home base?
Well, I mean, I guess the best place would be probably somewhere in the military because you would hear about it before everything went to shit. Maybe you can get out. But let's say the zombie apocalypse happened. I have a better question. What would be the best place to hold up?
Right.
Right? Like instead of like a mall, what would you do? So I was thinking about this a lot. And I think maybe IKEA. And I know what you're thinking. Well, you got the furniture, but what about the food? Well, they do have a little restaurant in there, right?
Right.
So you got some food right off the bat. You have a big enough place. It's like a maze, right? So you can confuse zombies.
That's true.
You can build your own little base somewhere in there, and then rearrange the aisles to kind of like be a maze. So unless you know the way, you can't get to your base inside there. And you have food to last you a while until you can go out and raid. Now you're gonna have to raid because that food's not gonna last. I mean, I don't know. Let's say between a week and a month.
Right.
It depends on how many people you have.
No, I could see that working. That's not a terrible idea, IKEA. That's actually kind of brilliant.
Right? I mean, at first you're like, what? And then I start explaining it. And it's like, all right, you have the tools and the furniture. Like, think about it. You get 100 bookshelves. Now you could use that wood to build like different things. Like there's raw material there and all the tools you need in the box.
So that's true. That wouldn't be bad. I always thought maybe heading to the water.
Okay.
Like if you could almost make like, when they do like the party boat thing when like it's just a ton of boats that all just tie next to each other in the water, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Basically,
almost like
that.
Waterworld, where they had the whole town that was floating.
Kind of like that. I think that would be the best bet because no zombie is going to be able to get there. And it's like anything coming in and out, you would have pretty much full control over. A zombie's not going to can't, we, as far as we could tell, they don't swim.
Sure, they might be able to walk along the bottom of the water, but if the water's deep enough, that wouldn't be an issue.
Right.
Here's the problem, though. What kind of zombies are we dealing with? Now, if these are zombies where you get bitten or scratched and you turn into a zombie, but that is the only way you turn into a zombie, then your plan works perfectly. But in The Walking Dead and other zombie films, sometimes it's anyone who dies. Like something happened.
It just happens.
Yeah, and if you die, period, in any way, you become a zombie. And if that's the case, you're only safe if you're by yourself.
I guess that's true. See, I wasn't thinking about it that way, because that's probably the one thing I disliked most about Walking Dead was just that, where it's just like, oh, well, now you don't even need to be bitten or anything. If you just die, you become a zombie. That's just what happens now.
Well, it did bring interesting things to the lore. You know what I mean? Like a little bit of a twist. Because like in one of the shows, there's called The Walking Dead World Beyond, and it's in the future, and let's say 20 years in the future, and people have kind of dealt with zombies and that kind of thing. And there's a retirement home for old people, and all the doors of the retirement home have cages, and they get locked at night just in case these old people die. And no one's mad because that's just what you do. Because if you're a grandma or a grandpa, you're like, well, I don't want to like die in the middle of the night and kill my family, so yeah, lock me up at night. It was just a weird kind of, now that we live in this world, what do you do?
That is weird, but I guess I always just think about you got to get bit. You got to get scratched. You got to, something like that. That makes more sense to me. So that's where my water world type getaway works. But
I kind of like the flotilla of like a bunch of boats kind of connected. It's like everybody's on a pontoon.
Like pretty much that's where my head goes. And there's so many things that you could do to set up for fresh water. You know what I mean? You set up tarps and stuff so it has a drip point. So it has like an evaporation, condensation, and drip. So you could have fresh water. So you could do that. You could go fishing for food. You know what I mean? There's a lot of options.
That is true. The fishing for food, I'll give you. That's a good one.
But you got to make sure that you can get your vitamin C, because then you'll end up like pirates getting scurvy. Like that's what happens. They just eat fish. They don't have like any vitamin C in their diet. So you still would have to send certain parties to dock and raid.
Well, this is what you do. It is like a part of your prepper thing is you have a small greenhouse where you have small potted plants of like oranges and like lemon trees, right?
Right.
And you sell them because when they get big, you have to get rid of them. But you constantly have a small plant there. So if the zombie happens at any point, you could take one of those things, bring it on your boat. And if you have a bunch of boats, Ryan, I feel like a pontoon is strong enough that you could put enough dirt like in a mound in a pontoon and bury and have a tree and have it live long enough to bear you fruit.
I think you're right. Like that does make sense. You would just have to get one boat. Like that's a part of it. You could even do something as simple as just get like a old canoe or something like that. Fill that with dirt. And
well, no, because that would sink, man. It's gotta see a pontoon has like air in the pontoons.
That's true.
There was a sailboat that I've seen, which kind of the same thing, or like two pontoons, but along, connecting them was more like a net, and that was kind of the whole boat. And I'm thinking if it was something like that, then you could fill with dirt. And because even if the roots made it through that netting and like touch the water, if you're on a lake, it's okay because it's fresh water.
I was literally just about to say, I wanted to clarify. We're from the Great Lakes state here. We're from Michigan. So I'm thinking, go to a fresh water lake. I'm not talking about doing that on salt water. There's no way.
Well, doing it in the middle of the ocean is a problem because what if you just float in the middle of the ocean?
Yeah, there's currents and stuff like that.
Although there is a thing called the Michigan Triangle, which we have covered. If you are in Lake Michigan and you happen to get in the middle of Lake Michigan, you might as well be in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
You're not going to see any land. You're going to be just kind of stuck there.
It is mind-boggling how huge the Great Lakes are. But so it would work in a Great Lake, I believe, like that. But if we're talking zombies where when you die, whatever, there would obviously have to be extreme precautions. And I don't know how you could do that with everybody tied together. So that doesn't work for that.
Well, Ryan, see, you're the captain of this ship. You're the admiral of this fleet, right? So you just got to joy rig it where you have like a lever on your boat where it separates your boat from the rest of them. So in an emergency, you could just be like, see ya.
Yeah, it's kind of a dick move, but yeah.
Dude, Ryan, have you read a book or watched a movie? All the leaders of a group like that are always dicks. If you're not a dick, you're not going to be the leader of that group.
Yeah,
or your group is going to be cannibalized. You're going to be dead. An eviler group's going to come up and just be like, "Hey, we need help." And Ryan's going to be like, "Oh, we'll help you." And next thing you know, Ryan's head is on a spike.
Yep. And it's like, and Mulls are so dead now that it's like you've tried to like hold up like
Can
at
you
a mall.
imagine? Yeah, it's
Like,
just
there-
empty.
It's there's really not going to be much going on. There's
Somebody
like a few
runs in
stores-
there and he's like, I got this. He gets in the mall. He's like, I'll have everything I need. There's nothing. It's
like
all
no,
closed.
yeah, everything's closed. You can't even get food. Like that's so funny, like right? Because that was the whole thing. Like going to a mall kind of made sense before because that's
You had all the food, all the clothes,
But-
all the materials you could possibly
But
need.
now we're losing all the malls. Whatever's there is very rare, and it's usually just like clothing shops and shit.
Well,
So,
this is what we do, Ryan. Then we take over an Amazon distribution center.
yep. You
Yep.
gotta change with the times. Everything is there.
Everything is there.
Everything.
I don't know though. I've never been inside a distribution center. Is it just like they have different distribution centers? Like, is there one that's all refrigerated for like food, or do the groceries come from a different hub? And is the distribution center just like I don't know, things that don't need to be kept in any certain way, like notebooks and what have you?
Amazon is ran by just a bunch of magic elves that can just reach into portals and pull cold things out so that they can wrap it and send it.
That would be funny as hell. Like not Jeff Bezos, but just like the secret guy behind Amazon that is literally Santa Claus.
Yes. And Bezos is his apprentice.
No,
Like-
no.
like- like-
Bezos is. Look, I'm not talking. I don't know if he's a terrible guy, but rich billionaires tend to not be great people. So I'm gonna keep him at arm's length. Okay, he's the public head. That's it.
I will do thy bidding, my
Santa.
master. Santa. Darth Santa.
Darth Santa. And somehow this was a zombie show.
Yeah.
And we're gonna end with Darth Santa.
Yes, and I'm just hearing like jingle bells are like din, 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 din.
Actually, I know you love Star Wars, but take the Star Wars out of that. That would be a fun fucking Christmas movie. Can you imagine Santa in like straight up like the Santa Claus, whatever, like in his workshop, and it's him dealing with the zombie apocalypse. So he's out Christmas night delivering presents when the zombie outbreak starts.
Why do I want to say that something similar to this has been done? Where like Santa Claus has to go on some kind of crazy rampage?
That already has been done. That was called I don't remember, but the guy David Harbour from Stranger Things was Santa.
Yes.
Yeah, it came out a few
yes.
years ago, and it was him like saving a family, and it was
That
like
was it.
and it was like an action film.
That was it.
So my version's kind of like the horror version of that.
I think that actually is, and it would be all the elves. So a bunch of zombie elves.
Well, no, that's the third act is when he gets home and the outbreak has made it to the North Pole, because the most of the movie's got to be him trying to deliver presents while this is happening.
It's like, is that you, Rudolph? And it just turns around.
Why is your nose so dim? Dun 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 dun.
Fucking
my God.
zombie reindeer.
I don't
And they
know.
can fly.
I mean, I guess if we're gonna have zombie elves, then we could have zombie reindeer. But once again, we can't do that right away, because that's got to be a third act thing. Because when you have a monster that can fly, like a zombie reindeer who's swooping down, flying, trying to kill you, like that is a hard thing to beat. And after you beat it, you can't really top it. So that's got to be third act, where he's in the North Pole with Mrs. Claus fighting against the
Oh, I
elves
had
and
one.
reindeer diving in.
No, I had one for Mrs. Claus. We were going to have a scene already right before the reindeer where she gets bit and we're almost certain that she's dead. Like Santa ends up getting separated from her, and one way or another, we the audience are assuming she's dead. And we've got to do the heroic scene where, here come the reindeer, here are the gnomes, all the elves, and Santa's getting back to a corner. We think this is it. And then all of a sudden we hear the door open and like she cocks she's like, like someone's on the naughty list.
Right, but how she's okay though is got to be something like Christmassy, right? Like she could like lift up her shirt where it was bit, and there's got to be just like, I don't know, some kind
Like
of
Kevlar made out of candy canes.
exactly. There's got to be something festive,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Like, she's like, son of a bitch, you should have known.
I had Jingles make this for me yesterday. And there you go. Like, there you go. We have just written
Oh my god.
one hell of a Santa zombie film.
Right? And okay, so one of the elves has got to be named Jingle. So she's like, Jingle, you get all the way out of here. Out the window. Santa goes off, wipes it down. Jingle all the way.
Checking it twice.
Oh my god, that's the double tap.
Yeah.
Because Santa always checks twice.
That's right.
Oh, okay, yours was better.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, mine Jingle all the way thing, like all the pieces were there, but it didn't quite come together in a joke. Now yours, you win. Well
That's
done.
right.
I'm,
That's right.
I'm giving you a fist bump.
Thank you for said fist bump. I receive it with honor.
Yes. well, well, guys, I mean, hell, I think we covered just about everything you could possibly cover when it comes to zombies on this episode.
I think so. I think so.
So, that's it. Thank you very much for joining us on this very special zombie episode. New episodes every Tuesday of Earthling Entertainment. Please share the episodes with a friend. Tell others who might enjoy this content. And remember, every download helps us out. So please hit the download button. And thanks.
Use your voodoo and hypnotize your friends with Earthling Entertainment. Show a loved one. Show a coworker. Share us around like the plague.
Or maybe the zombie apocalypse of viewers. That's what we're looking for.
That is exactly what we've been looking for. And I think we found it this episode. Thank you guys so much.
All right. So long, Earthlings, from everyone here at Earthling Entertainment. Entertainment? That sounds like a fucking awesome place to go.
Entertain
If
ya.
we ever have an Earthling Entertainment amusement park,
There you
it's going to
go.
be called Earthling Entertainment.
That's it.
All
That's
right.
it.
From all of us working here at the Friends and Parks of Earthling Entertainment. See ya.
Keep your hands and arms inside the ride until it comes to a complete stop.
Merchandising.